The Second Amendment. The Second Amendment was ratified on December 1791, which provides U.S. citizens the right to bear arms. The amendment was originally created to give citizens the opportunity to fight back against a tyrannical federal government. James Madison originally proposed the Second Amendment shortly after the Constitution was officially ratified as a way to provide more power to state militias, which today are now considered the National Guard. It was a compromise between Federalists and Anti-Federalists that having just used guns and other arms to ward off the British. Since its ratification, there were different issues against the Second Amendment. Americans have been arguing over the amendment's meaning and interpretation. One side interprets the amendment to mean it provides for collective rights, and while the opposing view is that it provides individual rights. Those who take the collective side think that the amendment gives each state the right to maintain and train formal militia units that can provide protection against an oppressive federal government. Those with the individual rights argue that the amendment gives every citizen the right to own guns, free of federal regulations, to protect themselves in the face of danger. Now let's go on to some Supreme Court cases regarding the Second Amendment. In U.S. v. Cruikshank in 1876, the case involved members of the KKK not allowing black citizens the right to standard freedoms, such as the right to assembly and the right to bear arms. As part of the ruling, the court said that the right of each individual to bear arms was not granted under the Constitution. 10 years later, the court affirmed the ruling of Presser v. Illinois when it said that the Second Amendment only limited the federal government from prohibiting gun ownership, not the states. In District of Columbia v. Heller in 2008, the case centered on Dick Keller, a licensed special police officer in Washington who challenged the nation's capital handgun ban for the first time. And the Supreme Court ruled that despite state laws, individuals who were not part of a state militia did not have the right to bear arms. Also, in McDonald v. City of Chicago, it challenged that the city's ban on private handgun ownership, but in a similar 5-4 ruling, the court affirmed its decision in the Heller case, saying that the Second Amendment applies equally to the federal government and all the states. Now for some gun control facts. The Gun Control Act of 1968 requires a resident must be at least 18 years of age to purchase shotguns or rifles and ammunition, but must be 21 years of age to purchase a handgun and all other kinds of firearms. Now for the true or false statement. Do they require background checks before purchasing firearms? The amendment to the 1968 Gun Control Act, known as the Brady-Handgun Violence Prevention Act of 1993, requires holders of firearms to conduct a background check.